I bought a mountain cabin in the Colorado Rockies so I could finally watch the sunrise paint the peaks gold every morning, just like my father and I used to when I was a kid. Then my sister called and said, "Paul and I have been planning this for months. We're turning your cabin into a wellness retreat center. You can use the basement guest room between bookings." Dad would have wanted the family to benefit from this, not just you. I didn't yell at her. I didn't hang up immediately. But when Linda and Paul showed up 6 weeks later with a group of 12 paying clients and yoga mats, they found something waiting for them that nobody in my family expected. Before I continue, please subscribe to Feathered Vengeance and write in the comments what time it is where you are right now. The lawyer's office in Boulder smelled like old wood and coffee. Margaret Chen slid the deed across her desk on a Wednesday morning in early March, 3 months after my father passed. I'd driven up from Colorado Springs before dawn, watching the mountains emerge from the darkness as I climbed into the high country. "Your father was very specific in his will," she said, tapping the document. "The cabin goes to you, Thomas. Not to be split among siblings, not to be sold unless you choose. Just you." I signed where she indicated, my hand steadier than I expected for a man about to inherit the place where all my best childhood memories lived. The cabin sat at 9,200 feet, 40 minutes past Nederland on a dirt road that became impassable in heavy snow. 2 acres of pine and aspen, a creek running through the back property, and a view of the Indian peaks that took your breath away every single time. "Your sister tried to contest the will," Margaret added, closing the folder. "She claimed your father wasn't of sound mind when he updated it last year. We had his doctor's testimony. The judge dismissed it in under 15 minutes. Linda tried to contest it? She seemed to feel the property should be divided equally among all 3 children. I thought about my brother Marcus in Seattle, who hadn't visited Dad in the last 5 years of his life. I thought about Linda, who'd show up twice a year, always with her hand out, always with some new business scheme that needed Dad's investment. Then I thought about the 63 weekends I'd driven up from the Springs to check on Dad, to fix his roof, to sit with him when the cancer got bad. Thank you, Margaret. The drive to the cabin took another hour and 20 minutes. When I pulled into the gravel drive, I just sat in my truck, engine ticking as it cooled. The place looked the same as always. Same weathered log walls, same green metal roof, same covered porch with the rocking chairs Dad and I built together when I was 16. I climbed out slowly. My left knee, the one I'd destroyed in that warehouse fire back in '09, didn't like the altitude. Inside, everything was exactly as Dad had left it. His coffee mug in the dish drainer, his reading glasses on the arm of his recliner, his firefighter helmet from his 30 years with Denver Fire Department mounted on the wall above the fireplace where he could see it from his chair. My father had been a firefighter. I'd been a firefighter. 38 years with Colorado Springs Fire Department before I retired at 61, 2 years ago. The work had given me purpose after my wife Sarah died, kept me too busy to fall apart completely. But it had also worn my body down in ways I was still cataloging. I spent that first week slowly making the cabin mine while keeping Dad's presence alive. My books on the shelves next to his Louis L'Amour collection. Sarah's hiking boots, the ones she'd worn on our last anniversary trip to Glacier, placed by the door where she'd always left them. My own coffee routine replacing Dad's, but using his mug because it felt right. The eagles came every morning, just like Dad said they would. A mated pair that nested somewhere up the canyon. They'd glide past the deck at sunrise, riding the thermals without a single wing beat, effortless and free. I'd watch them while my coffee cooled, and for those few minutes, the grief over losing Dad and Sarah both felt bearable. I called Linda that Saturday evening. "I'm here," I said. "Finally, got everything settled and moved in." "Oh, Tom." Her voice had that edge it always carried, the one that meant she wanted something. "It's about time. Listen, Paul and I need to come up and see the place. We've been thinking about Dad's cabin a lot." "It's my cabin now, Linda. Dad left it to me. Technically, yes, but it's still family property in spirit. Dad built that place for all of us. You remember the summers we spent up there. I remember different summers than she did. I remember Dad teaching me to fish in the creek, Linda complaining about the mosquitoes, Marcus refusing to help with firewood, me learning to love the mountains in a way that marked me permanently. You're welcome to visit, I said. Just call ahead. Actually, Paul and I have been researching the wellness retreat industry. Do you have any idea what places like your cabin can earn as corporate retreat centers? We're talking 20 to 30,000 a month during peak season. My hand tightened on the phone. It's not a retreat center. It's my home. Tom, be realistic. You're 63 years old. How long can you really live alone at that altitude with your knee? Paul's been in consulting for 20 years. He knows how to monetize properties like this. We'd handle everything, the marketing, the bookings, the cleaning crews. You'd just collect your share of the profits, and we'd make sure the basement guest room stays available for you between bookings. The basement guest room, in my own inherited cabin. My answer is no, Linda. You're being short-sighted. What happens when your pension isn't enough? What happens when you need medical care and the bills pile up? This is a business opportunity that benefits the whole family. Dad would have wanted us to work together on this. Dad left me the cabin specifically. Not us. Me. That tells you what he wanted. Because you manipulated him when he was dying. The accusation hit harder than I expected. That's not what happened, wasn't it? You were up there every weekend, Tom, getting him to change his will, cutting out your own siblings. That's pretty calculating. I was taking care of him, Linda. Where were you? Some of us have careers that don't offer every weekend off. Some of us have actual responsibilities. I'd spent 38 years running into burning buildings. I bit back what I wanted to say. The cabin's not for rent. That's final. We'll discuss this later when you've had time to think clearly, she said, and hung up before I could respond. I sat on the deck afterward, watching the last light fade from the peaks. The temperature was dropping fast, the way it does at altitude. An eagle called from somewhere up the canyon, a sound like wilderness itself. The warning bell that had started during Linda's call kept ringing quietly in my mind. 3 weeks passed. I fell into a rhythm that felt like healing. Wake at dawn, make coffee, watch the eagles, read in the morning, afternoon projects around the cabin, fixing the gate hinges, stacking firewood, clearing brush from around the propane tanks. Evening time on the deck, watching the stars come out in numbers you never saw at lower elevations. Then Linda called again. It was a Thursday evening in late April. Tom, I need to be direct with you. Paul and I have been doing serious research. Your cabin, properly marketed to corporate groups and wellness retreats, could generate $400,000 annually in gross revenue. After expenses, that's maybe $280,000 in profit. Split 3 ways among the siblings. That's over $90,000 each. It's not being split 3 ways, and it's not for rent. You're being selfish. Her voice turned cold. This is exactly what Dad was worried about. He told me before he died that you'd always been difficult about sharing. This is a family asset, Tom. You don't get to hoard it. Dad told you I was difficult about sharing? He was concerned about what would happen after he was gone, how you'd handle things. I didn't believe her. Dad and I had talked extensively in his final months. He'd been clear, even through the morphine haze, about why he was leaving me the cabin. Because you're the only one who actually loved this place, Tommy. The only one who'll take care of it. Linda, I'm not arguing about this. The cabin's mine. It's not a business opportunity. Then you're making a huge mistake. And when you're alone up there in 10 years, struggling to maintain a property you can't afford on a fixed income, don't come crying to us for help. She hung up again. I sat at my kitchen table, looking at my father's helmet on the wall, and pulled out a notebook. Old habit from my fire investigation days. Document everything. I wrote down the date, the time, Linda's exact words as I remembered them, the threats, the manipulation, not because I expected to need it, just because precision prevented problems later. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday in early May, I was replacing rotten boards on the front steps when a Lexus SUV came up my road. Linda and Paul climbed out. They hadn't called ahead. Surprise visit, Linda said, like we were old friends. We were in Estes Park for the weekend and thought we'd stop by. See what you've done with the place. Paul, tall and permanently tanned in expensive outdoor gear that had never seen actual wilderness, surveyed the property with calculating eyes. It's bigger than the photos suggested. The location is premium. What photos? Oh, county assessor records. Google Earth, that kind of thing, Linda said. Tom, we really need to sit down and discuss this properly. We've brought someone who can help you understand the opportunity here. A third person emerged from the SUV, a woman in her 30s with a leather portfolio and practiced smile. Mr. Brennan, I'm Stephanie Vale with Mountain Property Solutions. Your sister asked me to prepare some projections for your property. I didn't ask for projections. Just hear her out, Paul said, already climbing my front steps. 5 minutes, that's all we're asking. I should have said no. I should have turned them around right there. But they were already inside, already sitting at my father's table like they owned the place. And if I forced them out, Linda would spin it into something ugly. Tell Marcus I'd become hostile. Tell the cousins I'd lost my mind up here alone. Stephanie opened her laptop. I've done a comprehensive market analysis. Properties like this, in the Boulder County area, positioned as corporate wellness retreats, command between $3,000 and $7,000 per night depending on season and group size. I don't care what they command. Your property could accommodate 12 to 15 guests comfortably, she continued. With proper marketing through corporate channels and retreat coordinator networks, you'd be looking at 70% occupancy year-round. That's 255 days booked at an average of $4,000 per night. Paul leaned forward. That's over $1 million in gross revenue, Tom. Even at conservative margins, you're looking at $300,000 in net profit annually. Your share would be $100,000 for doing nothing. My share. I set down my coffee carefully. Of my own property. Our proposal is simple, Linda said. We form an LLC. You contribute the property. Paul and I handle all operations. Stephanie here manages bookings. Profits split evenly 3 ways. You retain ownership. You get to use the cabin when it's not booked, and you have a steady income stream. And where do I stay when it's booked? The basement guest room is actually quite nice, Linda said. 200 square feet, its own bathroom, separate entrance. You'd hardly notice the guests. The basement guest room, in my father's cabin, in my cabin. The answer is no. You're being unreasonable, Paul said. This is free money, Tom. All you have to do is say yes. I said no. You're doing this out of spite, Linda snapped, because Dad left you the cabin and you want to punish the rest of us for it. This is vindictive, Tom. It's beneath you. I think you should leave. Stephanie closed her laptop. Mr. Brennan, I'll leave my card. When you're ready to have a serious conversation about maximizing your asset value, please call me. After they left, I walked the property line, checking the old fence posts Dad and I had set 30 years ago. My hands were shaking. The eagles were hunting over the meadow below, circling something I couldn't see. I envied their clarity of purpose. That night, I called my friend James, a property attorney in the Springs who'd handled Sarah's estate when she died. Jim, I need to ask you something hypothetical. Nothing good starts with hypothetical, Tom. I told him about Linda's proposals, the pressure, the visit with Stephanie. His silence on the other end lasted too long. Tom, document everything. Every phone call, every visit, every proposal. If your sister tries to claim any kind of partnership or agreement, you'll need proof you refused consistently. You think she'd do that? I've been doing this 32 years. Family plus property equals litigation. Always. Get cameras up there. Good ones. I drove to Boulder the next day and spent $800 on a security system. 3 cameras covering the driveway, front entrance, and back deck. Motion activated, night vision, cloud storage. The installer had them running by late afternoon. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. I started thinking maybe Linda had accepted my refusal. Then, on a Wednesday morning in late May, I was checking my email when I saw a newsletter from a corporate retreat booking site I'd never subscribed to. Featured property, Mountain Haven Wellness Retreat. The photo showed my deck, my view, my father's cabin. I clicked through to the full listing. Authentic Colorado mountain experience. 12 guest capacity. Full kitchen, meditation deck, fire pit, creek access. Perfect for corporate teams, yoga retreats, wellness workshops. From $3,800 per night. Limited availability. Book now. The photos were professional quality. multiple angles of my cabin, inside and out, my living room, my deck, my father's recliner visible in one shot, a calendar showing availability. June already had 3 bookings marked. The contact information listed Mountain Haven Properties LLC with a phone number and email. No physical address. I pulled up the state business registry. Mountain Haven Properties LLC, registered 3 weeks ago. Managing members, Linda Brennan Foster and Paul Foster. Registered agent, Stephanie Vale. They'd formed an LLC using my property without my permission. I called Jim immediately. They've listed my cabin as a commercial retreat center. They're taking bookings. Send me everything. Screenshots, the business registration, all of it. I'm drafting a cease and desist today. What about criminal charges? Fraud, theft by deception. We can pursue both civil and criminal. But Tom, understand what you're starting here. This is your sister. She started it when she listed my property for commercial rent. All right, give me 2 hours. Jim's cease and desist went out by certified mail that afternoon. Immediate termination of all commercial listings. Dissolution of Mountain Haven Properties, LLC. Removal of all photos and booking content. Acknowledgement that Thomas Brennan is sole owner with exclusive rights. Failure to comply within 72 hours would result in civil lawsuit and criminal complaint. Linda called at 9 that evening. You had a lawyer send us legal threats? Over a family business discussion? You created an LLC and listed my property for rent without my knowledge or permission. That's fraud, Linda. It's a business proposal that you're too stubborn to see the value in. We were moving forward with the planning phase to show you the potential. Once the money started coming in, you'd have understood. Take down the listing. Dissolve the LLC. Refund any money you've collected. This is family, Tom. We should be working together, not fighting through lawyers. Marcus is going to be furious when he hears about this. Marcus hasn't returned my calls in 3 years. Because you shut him out. Just like you're shutting me out now. Dad's turning over in his grave watching you destroy this family over a cabin. Dad left me the cabin specifically to prevent this exact situation. So you say. We only have your word for that. She hung up. I checked the retreat listing website. Still active. The June bookings still showed as available. I called Jim and left a message. She's refusing to comply. File everything, civil and criminal. The next morning, my security cameras caught something. At 2:17 a.m., Paul's Lexus pulled into my driveway. He got out, tried my front door, locked. Tried the back door, locked. Walked around the entire perimeter, testing windows. Then he stood on my deck for several minutes, talking on his phone, animated and angry. At 2:34 a.m., he left. I reviewed the footage over coffee, watching my brother-in-law case my cabin in night vision. His face in the grainy footage showed pure entitlement, pure disbelief that I was actually resisting. 2 days later, a deputy from Boulder County Sheriff's Office came up the mountain. Deputy Rachel Morrison, professional and thorough. Mr. Brennan, I understand you filed a complaint regarding fraudulent property listings. I walked her through everything. The proposals I'd refused repeatedly. The LLC formed without my knowledge. The retreat listing with bookings. The cease and desist being ignored. Paul's middle-of-the-night visit to my property. I showed her the security footage. Do you know if they've actually collected money from these bookings? I pulled up the website on my laptop. They show confirmed reservations. First group is supposed to arrive this Saturday. A corporate team from a Denver tech company. 12 people. Mr. Brennan, I'm going to be direct. This is fraud. Your sister and her husband are operating a commercial venture using property they don't own. That's criminal. But I need to ask, this is family. Are you sure you want to pursue this? I want them stopped. Whatever it takes. She made notes in her book. I'm opening an investigation. If they show up with those clients Saturday, call me immediately. Don't confront them yourself. Saturday came clear and cold. One of those late May mornings where winter hasn't quite released its grip at altitude. At 10:23 a.m., I saw vehicles coming up the road. Paul's Lexus, followed by a Mercedes Sprinter van. A corporate group. I counted 12 people through my security cameras as they climbed out, carrying yoga mats and weekend bags. I called Deputy Morrison. They're here. Stay inside. I'm 20 minutes out. Linda led the group up my front steps, all smiles and professional hospitality. She tried the door. Locked. She knocked. Tom? It's Linda. I have the Apex Solutions group here for their retreat weekend. Can you please open up? I stayed silent, phone in hand, recording everything through the window. Tom, this is ridiculous. These people paid $6,500 for this weekend. You're embarrassing yourself here. One of the group, a man in his 40s in expensive athletic wear, looked confused. Is there a problem? The listing said the property would be ready for our arrival. Small family misunderstanding, Linda said smoothly. My brother is just having trouble adjusting to the new arrangements. Give me a moment. She pulled out her phone, called someone. A minute later, Paul climbed out of the Lexus, carrying a manila folder. He walked up to my door and knocked hard. Tom, I have partnership papers here. We can sign them right now and make this all official. Stop being difficult. 17 minutes after my call, Deputy Morrison's cruiser appeared, followed by a second patrol vehicle. The corporate group watched, confused, then alarmed, as two deputies approached. I opened my door as they reached the porch. Mr. Brennan, please stay inside. Through the window, I watched Deputy Morrison speak with Linda and Paul. I watched the confusion turn to shock on the corporate group's faces. Watched Linda's professional mask crack into panic. Watched Paul's confidence collapse into defensive anger. The man who'd spoken earlier, clearly the team leader, stepped forward. Are you telling me they don't even own this property? The property owner is Mr. Thomas Brennan, Deputy Morrison said. These individuals have no legal authority to rent or operate any commercial venture on this property. We paid $6,500 in advance. Through their company website, Deputy Morrison handed Paul several documents. You're being served with a civil injunction, ordering you to cease all commercial operations related to this property immediately. You're also being notified that you're under criminal investigation for fraud and theft by deception. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The corporate group got back in their van. The team leader was on his phone, probably calling his credit card company. The weekend they'd paid for was gone. The trust exercise they'd planned was becoming a very different kind of lesson. Linda grabbed Deputy Morrison's arm. This is insane. This is my brother's property. It's family property. He's just being vindictive because Dad left it to him. Ma'am, the deed is clear. Mr. Thomas Brennan is the sole owner. You've been operating a commercial booking service using property you don't own. That's criminal fraud. After they left, Morrison came to my door. Your sister and brother-in-law are facing potential charges of obtaining property by false pretenses, theft by deception, and wire fraud. The wire fraud charge depends on how they processed payments, but if they used electronic transfers across state lines, federal prosecutors might get involved. Will they actually face charges? That's up to the DA. But the evidence is very strong. They continued operations after receiving a cease and desist. They showed up with paying clients after being legally ordered to stop, and those clients will be filing their own complaints. This isn't going away quietly. After she left, I sat at my kitchen table, looking at my father's helmet on the wall. The eagles were hunting again, patient and focused. I'd protected my home, but the cost was becoming real. My sister was facing criminal investigation. My nephew Marcus would never speak to me again. The only family I had left was fracturing. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon, something I rarely did, and went to the deck despite the cold. The mountains were sharp against the afternoon sky, indifferent to human drama. I thought about Sarah, about what she'd say if she were here. She'd been kind, always, but she'd also been strong. She'd stood up to her own sister when that sister tried to guilt us into co-signing a failed business loan. She'd understood boundaries. My phone rang. Marcus, calling from Seattle for the first time in 3 years. You called the cops on Linda? You're having our sister investigated for fraud? Marcus. She created a fake business using my property. She collected thousands of dollars from people for retreats at a place she had no right to rent. She ignored a legal cease and desist. What did you expect me to do? Handle it as family, not destroy her life with criminal charges. She destroyed this herself. She's your sister, Tom. Your only sister. You're willing to send her to prison over Dad's cabin? I'm willing to protect what Dad specifically left to me. If she faces consequences, it's because of choices she made. You've changed. You've become someone I don't recognize. Someone Dad would be ashamed of. That one landed hard. Exactly as he intended. Don't use our dead father against me. Dad always said you were the reasonable one, the steady one. What happened? I started protecting myself from family members who think they're entitled to what I inherited. We're done, Tom. I mean it. Don't call me again. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a brother. He hung up. I sat on the freezing deck for a long time after that. The bourbon tasted like nothing. A storm was building over the divide, dark clouds gathering above the peaks. I was completely alone in the solitude I'd sought, and it felt heavier than I'd expected. The following weeks crawled by. June came in warm and bright. Jim kept me updated on the legal proceedings. The injunction was finalized. Linda and Paul were ordered to pay damages of $18,700 to the various groups they'd defrauded. The district attorney was reviewing the criminal case. I established new routines around the grief. Morning coffee with the Eagles. Afternoon work on the cabin, resealing the log walls, replacing old chinking, projects Dad had been meaning to do before he got sick. Physical work that tired my body and quieted my mind. I didn't hear from Linda or Marcus. I didn't expect to. In late June, Jim called. The DA has decided to prosecute. Your sister and brother-in-law will be formally charged next week. Fraud charges, multiple counts. Given the amounts involved and the clear evidence, they'll likely be offered a plea deal. Probably suspended sentences with heavy restitution and probation if they have no priors. What does that mean practically? They avoid jail time if they take the deal. But they'll have criminal records. They'll owe substantial restitution. Paul's consulting business will take a major hit. Your sister won't be able to get licensed for any kind of financial or real estate work. After hanging up, I made dinner and ate it on the deck. The summer evening was perfect, the kind that justified every harsh winter. The eagles were settling for the night somewhere up the canyon. A deer stepped out of the tree line, saw me, and calmly continued to the creek. My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Jessica. You've destroyed my parents' lives. Mom's business is ruined. Dad's losing clients. Their marriage is falling apart. I hope you enjoy your precious cabin all alone. You deserve every lonely minute you have left. I deleted it without responding. Engaging with anger only fed it. My niece Jessica, who I'd held as a newborn, thought I was the villain here. Maybe she was right. Maybe I could have handled this differently. That night, I lay awake thinking about Marcus's words. Would Dad be ashamed? I didn't think so. Dad had been clear about why he left me the cabin, but he'd also loved Linda, despite her flaws. He'd believed in redemption, in second chances, in keeping doors open. At 3 a.m., I got up and wrote an email. Not to Linda or Paul, to Marcus. I'm sorry for how this has affected you. I understand you're angry, but I won't apologize for protecting what Dad specifically left to me. Linda and Paul made choices that had consequences. That's not my fault, but I love you, Marcus. And if you're ever willing to talk, I'm here. The cabin has plenty of room. The offer stands whenever you're ready. Tom, I sent it before I could overthink it, then went back to bed. July turned hot, even at altitude, the meadows filled with wildflowers. The creek ran cold and fast with snowmelt. I fell into the rhythm Dad had taught me decades ago. The rhythm of mountain life, where seasons mattered more than schedules, where weather dictated your day, where patience was survival. I was splitting firewood for winter one afternoon in early August when I heard a truck coming up the road. Marcus's old Ford, the one he'd driven since college, somehow still running after 25 years. He parked and got out slowly. He looked older than I remembered, thinner, tired in a way that went beyond sleep. Can I come in? Of course. I made coffee while he sat at the table, the same spot where Linda had shown me Stephanie's projections months ago. He looked around the cabin properly for the first time in years, taking in Dad's helmet, Sarah's boots by the door. The view through the windows to the peaks. "I got your email," he said finally. "Took me 6 weeks, but I've been thinking about it. And I think you were right about protecting the cabin. I don't know if I agree with how far you took it, but Linda was wrong. Dad left you this place specifically. That should have been the end of it." I didn't say anything, just waited. I talked to Linda last week. They took the plea deal. Suspended sentences, 5 years probation, 23,000 in restitution between all the people they defrauded. Paul's lost half his client base. Everyone knows about it now. Small business community talks. I heard Jessica's been blaming me. Jessica's 28 years old and learning that her parents aren't who she thought they were. "Give her time," he paused. "Linda asked about you." "She did?" "She's not ready to apologize. Don't expect that. But she asked if you were okay up here, alone. Said Dad would have hated us being divided like this. Dad hated people taking advantage of family more." Marcus looked out at the mountains. An eagle glided past the window, close enough to see its white head clearly. "Is that one of the pair Dad used to talk about?" "Same nesting site, anyway. They come by every morning." Dad loved watching them. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the afternoon light was turning golden on the aspen groves. The temperature was already dropping, the way it does at altitude. A storm was building over the divide. "Can I stay tonight?" Marcus asked. "Long drive back, and I wouldn't mind seeing the sunrise from here. It's been too long. The spare room's yours whenever you want it." That evening, we sat on the deck with bourbon, watching the stars emerge. The Milky Way stretched overhead in a river of light you never saw from the city. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. Some things heal better in silence. The next morning, I woke at dawn and started coffee. Marcus was already on the deck, wrapped in one of Dad's old wool blankets, watching the sky lighten over the Indian peaks. I handed him a mug and sat down beside him. The eagles came right on schedule, gliding past in their morning patrol. The mountains emerged slowly from the darkness. First the highest peaks catching the light, then the ridgelines, then the meadows below. "I forgot how quiet it is up here," Marcus said. "How complete the quiet is. Takes about a week to adjust. Then you don't want anything else." We sat there until the sun was fully up, the mountains turning from gray to gold to their full daylight clarity. At the door, Marcus paused. "Can I come back? Not next week, but eventually. Maybe bring the kids. They should know this place. Anytime. Just call ahead. I like my quiet." He almost smiled. "That sounds like you." After he left, I returned to my chair by the wood stove. The eagles were back, perched on dead snags above the meadow. I picked up the book I'd been reading, one of Dad's old Louis L'Amour westerns I'd found on the shelf. But I didn't read, just sat watching the mountains, the birds, the morning light across the valley. The cabin was mine, earned through being the son who showed up, defended through months of conflict I'd never wanted. The price had been high, family relationships damaged, maybe permanently, a sister facing years of consequences for choices she'd made, a brother I'd nearly lost entirely. But sitting there in the peace I'd fought for, watching the morning light shift across the peaks, I couldn't bring myself to regret the choice. Some things are worth protecting, some boundaries have to be held, and sometimes the people who should understand that best are the last ones who do. An eagle caught something in the meadow below. It lifted off with powerful wing beats, its prize clutched in its talons, heading for the nest to feed its young. I watched it disappear into the pines. I was home. Finally. Completely home. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to Feathered Vengeance, and share your thoughts in the comments below. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.